single one of these other female characters in the show doesn't have an ending per se in their arcs, but they have a beginning.
She is an atypical
heroine.
He's like, wait, do I get my pajamas? I don't need my pajamas.
Kind of echoing the show, we're all books, like we're all little microcosms, we're all individuals like filled with our own universe, and we're all just sort of floating through an empty space. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fall For It, an Asian drama pod, where we're discussing a newer drama that's on Netflix called Romance is a Bonus Book. And we're going to kind of pair that just a little bit with the theme of what this podcast is all about and why we created this podcast in the first place. The kind of theme that we're talking about is the journey to self-truth and sort of the journey that all of us are kind of on in our lives. Why we tell stories, why we consume stories, and
deep dive into them.
And deep dive into, yeah, I was gonna say, and why we overanalyze stories. There's been a lot going on lately, and I think the Star Wars fandom about meta thought and like thinking about things from not just the lens of what's happening in the universe of the story, but what it means for the people consuming it and what it means for the people who are telling it, how we're reflecting, ourselves and our social issues in our stories. And I think it came up a little bit on a thread that I was on the Fall For It drama Twitter. And I do want to make sure I talk about it a little bit this month, because it's really important to me to dissect the dramas from an external point of view. It's very important to me to say, like, wait, why did we tell this story? And to go back and say, why did we tell like Boys Over Flowers? Why are we retelling Hana Yora Dango, And that's something I like to dive into on this pod. With me this month, of course, is Marie Claire. Hello, Marie Claire.
Thanks, Ty.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
I don't think you said your own name, so I'll say your name.
I mean, I feel like
I know, no, but like sometimes this is somebody's first episode, right? Like this is, they're like, oh, I checked out Romance as a Bonus Book.
Yeah.
And I am Marie Claire, and I did bug Ty to start this podcast. I didn't have time to host/run another podcast, but I'm more than happy to participate and help and talk and discuss about what we should be doing behind the scenes, because these stories are so important, and it's because we have a lack of stories with this structure in North America. I think that's why we flock to them, and why many women in North America and across the world are finding these very Asian lens stories to be fascinating. And the key is that people need to suffer. and I don't say, like, I don't mean to say that in like such a casual way, but like angst is part of what helps you evaluate what is important to you, and all of these have at least some level of angst and some level of pain that the characters need to go through this like crucible to become better, or to realize maybe they had everything they needed all along. Maybe the true journey was the love they always had, or whatever, right? But the angst and the pain and the journey and the trials helps them grow. And through us examining these stories, it's helping us give new frameworks and new lenses and new ways of talking about stories that are important to us locally, and also give us a lens to examine our own lives.
Yeah. And with this particular drama that we're talking about today, it doesn't actually have a ton of angst. I think the angst is done in a very different way than a lot of other dramas. It's still there. There's still like some suffering.
Way more in the beginning, and then
way more in the beginning.
And then it kind of it becomes easier with time as the characters go on their journey, and they're able to work through and resolve their issues. And I think that the level of trial that the character needs to go through is proportional to how much they learn from each of the trials beforehand.
Yeah.
Because like in Meteor Garden,
Mm-hmm.
they go through a lot because they're both stupid and they do not learn from their mistakes.
Yes. This is why stories that have like stories that are set in high school or stories that are set in college are still very endearing to older women because they are representative of an arc that we will go through for the rest of our lives. And because they start out at such a young place and they end up at a place of where they've experienced so much growth, that's
Mm-hmm.
really inspiring, I think, for a lot of women, even into their 50s or 70s or whatever. They always they'll always gain something from that. And not just women, obviously, but it is something that connects a lot with women. So
Yes. And the idea that, even a high school story where somebody has to go through these trials, like you just said, it's like a microcosm of a woman's life in some
mhm.
ways because they've had to go through so many different issues or things to be able to move forward,
Yeah, because
and
they
get
have to.
over things and find who they truly are
Mhm,
inside, because that's really what this is about, is like discovering who you are and then having that confidence in that person.
mhm.
um Maybe understanding the places where you need to be tempered and understanding where you need to, you know be confident in your own power.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say, like, every time you experience any kind of change in life, anytime, that kind of initiates this journey and that initiates this, again, it'll happen over and over again. I think when I started like watching dramas and everything and started getting into it, I recognized that I was going through a journey and I was at the beginning of it. And that's why I related so much with these characters. It didn't matter what kind of situation they were in. It didn't matter if I was watching, a crime genre drama or a high school set drama. I related to the characters because I recognized a journey happening with myself. And I took down the walls of like, I took down cultural walls and I took down my own perspective that I was trying to hold on to, and like the person that I was like, I need to be this person, and like the career walls and all of that. I took all that down and I just said, you know what? I relate to this on a deeper level. And then that kind of got me where I'm at now, talking about it on a podcast. But
Not everybody has the tools in their brain to
mhm,
have meta thought, and that's being able to think about the thoughts that they're having and
mhm.
analyze them. And I struggle with it too, but
Oh yeah.
I've been given certain techniques over the course of my university and my life with people who are around me to help me understand how to think about my own thoughts.
Mhm.
It If you can't do that, or you've never been trained how to do that, then analyzing your life through the lens of a story is actually very helpful, because
Yes.
fiction allows us to take a third person perspective on our own lives.
Mhm.
And, this happens with reading stories, first person perspective of people that have experienced similar things to you, and then seeing how they got out of it, how they resolved, how they were able to work through some of the things that they were going through.
Yeah, like if a character, as a most simple put type of thing, right? If a character that you relate to in a story kills an abuser, then
Hmm.
you can look at that in a very therapeutic way and say, I need to let that person die in my mind, right? That's
Yeah.
like a way to let the story kind of reflect on like your own life. You can project on a story and it could be incredibly healing.
Or if you've made mistakes at a younger age and you
Mhm,
see a character struggling with those mistakes that you really identify
mhm.
with, it doesn't really even matter what the mistakes are, because you can put them through a lens to see those mistakes. And then they end up having a journey by which they, resolve and find peace with the mistakes that they
Right,
made, and almost like a redemption arc. Then,
right.
it allows you to frame your own mistakes through that lens and say, well, how can I find my way back?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I
because
Fiction is important.
Yeah. We're all just kind of we're all like individual, and this is kind of echoing the show. We're all books, like we're all little microcosms. We're all individuals like
Oh,
filled with our own universe, and we're all just sort of floating through an empty space. And we run into each other and we impact each other, and we can try to connect via telling our stories to each other,
yeah.
or we can close
Well,
ourselves off and think that we're the most special person in the universe.
can I quote Ken Liu from when he was on What the Force?
Absolutely. Ken,
So
Ken has Ken has the most brilliant ideas, I think, that go beyond Star Wars. It's fascinating.
yeah, on an episode where we talked about Star Wars as collective myth making and mythopoeia, he actually
Mhm.
talked about how when we look back on our lives as older people who are trying to evaluate the meaning within our lives, we tell stories about what the things that we experienced meant and
Mhm.
how we either grew or didn't learn from those stories, and we tell those stories to ourselves and to our grandchildren, to our children, to our spouses about the experiences. Fundamentally, when we share a personal experience, we tell a story about it.
Mhm.
And that's why fiction is important, because it is literally a reflection of how humanity communicates our own experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's something to be said about like even this is why we're doing this podcast. Romance and like everything from soap operas to romance novels, like the ones with the crazy covers that you'd never want to show that you're purchasing in the bookstore, or now with dramas, which seem to be making a big splash in the West now, thank God. They're all part of telling that story, and there's something happening under the surface of the tropes, underneath the surface of just the things that you see in every single one, because that little bitty difference, it's going to mean so much. It's going to reflect so much about the people who are telling it and the people who are consuming it and enjoying it, or the people that don't like it, or the people who hate it tremendously. Those conversations are fun too, and I think eventually we'll have to
Yeah.
have some, I think, on the pod. I have my hangups about two dramas at least that I would love to talk about on the pod. I'll say them, because if anybody's listening to this and they want to talk about it, I'm up for it. Uh, Are You Human Too? And Love 020.
Oh, I watched the first episode and was like, meh,
Now,
to that
yep,
one.
yep. I have severe reactions to both of those dramas that make me very, very, very angry. And
I have a good, like, tingly sense of when I know a drama's not gonna be good for me. So
yes,
I tend to, like, nope out,
yeah,
like, really
pretty quickly,
quick.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had some things that connected me to Love 020, so I think that's what made it infinitely more disappointing when I finished it and I realized that I had wasted my time on it, and I was sad. And but at the same time, like I know other people have different reactions to it. A lot of people love that drama. And I would love to talk to somebody who loved it, and and will fight me on it, because I find that very fascinating. Where, like I said, we're all our own little microcosms, and if we can't talk to each other about what we love or what we don't,
Discuss, not fight.
yeah, I know. I'm being facetious, but yeah, we should be able to talk about it because it's really interesting. So
Well,
yeah, on to
romance is a bonus book.
romance is a bonus book. It's so funny, this drama. I wasn't really sold on it. I saw the preview on Netflix, and it wasn't a
Oh,
very
I was
good
excited.
preview.
Actually, I was in a unique place. I was traveling for work away from my children,
Hmm.
and I needed something to distract me, and this is what I picked up, and it like
Huh.
hit me on a level,
Yeah.
like, just because of, like, some of the aspects of the storytelling, which we'll get into in a little bit. But first, let's do our quote, because I think that Kelly,
Yeah.
that quote is really good, and you can kind of explain how much it meant to,
Yeah.
I would say, probably the storytelling team, like the creative
Yeah.
team behind it. They get
Yeah.
it. They
And
purposeful. Mm.
it's very purposeful, and this is not giving anything away. But the quote comes from a part in the middle of the story when the two mains start to really come together and understand what each other wants and what they want. Then it is used again at the very end, and a lot of dramas do this. A lot of Korean dramas, at the very end of the drama, they send a message out to the people that have been watching it, just to say thanks, like thanks for sticking with us through the story. And the quote that they said they chose, and they even said to our fans, to our viewers, the moon is beautiful. And we'll talk about what it meant in the story later, but what it means to the viewer is to remember to embrace the little moments, remember to embrace what is happening right now.
Live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's a very Star Warsian thing too. I everything comes back to Star Wars for me. I'm so sorry, but you know,
the modern myth of mankind.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, it's be mindful of the living force. Be here. Be now.
Be now, yeah.
Be now.
Remember the small things. And hey, you know what? I'm going to pull something else into this since we've pulled in Star Wars, but BTS came out with a new album recently. And the title song in Korean, the Korean title is A Poem for the Small Things. And the story behind it was that they had gotten so famous that they wanted to reflect on the little things. And the things that help you connect with people, like what did you eat today, like, oh, text me after you get off work, you know, that kind of those little things that remind someone that you love them and you care about them. So to me, that's a very similar connection there. This is like the weird zeitgeist stuff happening. I think people want to remember the little things. People want to remember to live in the moment.
This is the zeitgeist of today. I'm happy with where we're heading, because remembering the little things is very important, because it's the moments, it's the little moments between moments. It's not like big gestures, but also the little moments. Every time a person has been there for you, that's important.
It's so funny you use the word between.
Yeah.
It's the moments that happen between the big moments.
Yeah.
I connect with that a lot. I connect that a lot when I'm on a drive to something, or when I'm
Can I quote George Lucas?
Yeah.
So oh gosh, I don't mean to be talking about Star Wars all the time, but George Lucas, as an inspirational speaker, did this speech about his success and, you know, how he found things. And he said a lot of people are talking about happiness, but happiness has 2 parts. There is pleasure and there is joy. And joy is you know, maybe less powerful than pleasure, but lasts longer, and it stays with you and it lasts. Pleasure is like this hit. It's almost like a drug of euphoria, right? These big moments are like pleasure, and if you keep on trying to hit for the big moments, it's like you're a drug addict and you're trying to, like, you know, always seek pleasure, and then you fear to lose that pleasure. But if you seek joy, if you seek the calm, the little moments where you are compassionate for others and trying to interconnect with others, joy springs from having compassion and love and wanting to be with others.
Yeah, because it's those little moments when you look around you and you say, oh wow, look where I'm at, look who I'm with, look what I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's not as powerful, but it's more lasting. And he said that people that only seek the big, the pleasure, the big moments, yeah, pleasure will come along, and you just have to hope it will come along again, and be excited when it does. But if you seek compassion and joy and, you know, being with other people and doing those little moments, like having those little moments with other people, then you will be happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's absolutely precious. And it can be told, like, that's why the quote is so important to me, is it can be told within like such a small sentence, but it can have so many layers of meaning because they told the story the right way. Like, honestly, this drama they did a very good job, I think, and weaving all of these themes together and coming full circle. There's a lot of trip ups, but I think it was a matter of time So let's get into it. Let's get into some of the technical stuff too. To introduce like the drama for people who have not seen it, we will wait for spoilers till the end. So you don't have to worry if you haven't seen it. You can hear us talk about the setup, and then we will introduce the spoilers when we talk about the whole thing. Setup is that Danny is a 37-year-old, and I could not find, by the way, I could not find like a really good summary of this at all. Like they all suck. They're all terrible summaries. So I'm going to give my own summary, and you can help me fill in the blanks. So Danny is 37 years old. She is homeless, divorced, or separated, divorced,
single mother,
and she is trying to get back into the workforce, but she cannot get a job because her education level is too high. She was at the top,
very successful career before deciding to stay home with her daughter.
Exactly. So she hasn't been in the job market for a while, and that's a problem. Anwo is
Anwo. I think it's Anwo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anwo is 32 years old. So our male lead is actually younger than our female lead. And he is very successful. He never had like a serious relationship that he got into that interrupted his career. He is a writer, a publisher. He's one of the founders of the publishing firm, and he's also a professor. So very successful, even-tempered, just an absolute male lead drama hero, I would say.
Oh, but he externally comes off as typical male lead hero, even though he has this really he comes off as a typical male lead hero, even though he has this really close relationship with Danny, because Danny and him have this like kind of tense relationship because she doesn't want to tell the truth and he doesn't want to tell the truth to her. They both have lies, but he comes off as an asshole to everyone else. Yeah. Like everyone is like, oh, he's so tough, and he's like, like he's cold and he doesn't care about anything. So even though he comes off as the typical man, I'm successful, I have my shit together, he still doesn't, because emotionally he's just this like little baby.
In the first episode, he says this woman, and they're doing a flashback sequence where he says, this is the woman, this is the reason why I don't believe in love.
Because
so he's bitter
of Danny.
He's bitter and he's mad, and that's the one thing in his life that never resolved. He never figured it out, and he's still bitter.
That's his baggage.
That's his baggage. Exactly. It's his baggage. It's his shadow. So the interesting part about this is that the weird stuff happening is that our female lead, our heroine, she's older, she has been hurt, she very much so, but she is still strong as nails, and she is trying to do everything on her own. And her daughter actually lives in, I thought for a minute it was the US, but then I was like, wait, maybe it's like the Philippines, because her daughter's living in like a boarding school.
Yeah, no, it's the Philippines. It's somewhere else in Asia, where the boarding school is cheaper to send her to, and then she is kind of growing up on her own.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too when we get to spoilers. But yeah, so she's got a daughter, and she can't be there for her daughter, so she feels like she's failing in every aspect of her life at the beginning of the drama. And there's some when I was looking into kind of like the reviews of this and what other people have said about the drama, was that the show took a lot of inspiration from the US television show Younger, which is kind of interesting. I've never seen Younger.
I've never seen it.
I know what it's about. I've seen the summaries, I've seen the trailers. I actually was curious about it when it first was released in 2015, but it's about a 40-year-old woman who gets mistaken as a 20-something year old by a tattoo artist. He says, you look like 26. So she decides that because she's not, like, she's trying to like find a new career and everything, she decides to lie about her age and pretend that she's 26 years old. She ends up getting like a social media marketing job with a bunch of other young women that are around that age.
Oh.
So, and she ends up like kicking their butts and like being kind of like this hero. And she's also a single mother. So this show sort of inspired this drama in a way. And what's so fascinating about it is that, yeah, it started as that, but it became something entirely different. And I do question the writers in that area, because I think there was a lot more potential there to be more of what it was.
What it ends up being in Korea, in the Korean
Yeah.
drama. Well, like, and I actually really wonder why this genre like this genre of storytelling has not happened in the US and North America. Like, we don't get these stories.
For which aspect of it though?
The arcs. We don't get
Arcs,
we
yeah.
don't get these arcs in North America.
I think
And
that yeah, well, and you could correct me if you think I'm wrong on this one, but I think it's the money aspect. I think it's the in South Korea they're focused on the short form stories, and they're focused on a lot of them. Whereas in the US, we're focused on like milking it, getting as many seasons as we can, because people get so connected to the characters. But in Asia, they seem to be more connected on the storyline and less on the character.
well, it's because every time you get a new story that has this formula, it's the same characters, just in a new life.
Yeah.
So it is like you're getting new stories.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I just think that it just hasn't hit yet. Like, honestly, they just need to, and maybe with streaming services it will be better, because like things like Marvel have been very successful short-term storytelling with these characters, and then maybe they come back in other people's stories, etc. Like, Hollywood, hire us. We'll write you some amazing stuff.
Yeah, we love transformative works. We like when they kind of like you take a story that's popular and you pull it apart and you piece it back together and you say, ooh, I like this aspect and I like this aspect, but let me see if I can do this a little differently.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about how storytelling is done in the Asian drama format. And I do get connected to characters, but I don't see our obsession with it. I have too many shows that are US based that I watch that are like, it got renewed again, it got renewed again, it got renewed again. I'm like, can we stop? Can we stop? Because I'm ready to move on to like another story, you know?
Yeah.
But and you're right, it's an arc as well, right? It's a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's complete. And when you keep adding more seasons, it's not complete. The way that this drama begins, and for some reason there's like this random musical number. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
There's actually a random musical number where they sing about like women's empowerment and going back into the workforce. I love how you don't remember it, because like literally the drama in towards the middle and the end is completely different than the first few episodes.
Well, so like the first episode I was so upset with, I almost didn't watch the whole thing. So I think I blocked out the first episode.
Oh, I love the first episode because I love
the first episode made me want to like not watch anything.
Fascinating.
But I stuck with it because I was on a business trip and I didn't have a choice, because that was like all I had downloaded on my on my iPad.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, there was like Jenny was at an interview, and then these random women pop up behind her and start singing, and it's supposed to be like this weird, it's a montage musical number so that they can
I seriously have like blanked out the whole first episode, except for like I remember aspects of like her like flashback to her past with Unwell.
But yeah, no, the stuff with the montage that they have basically explains what's happening in South Korea right now, which is that the employment rate is at 4.2%.
Wait. The employment or
Sorry,
unemployment rate?
The unemployment rate. The unemployment rate.
That seems like the same as Canada, I think.
Yeah. Well, the problem is it's like a really small country and they don't have a lot of
Options. Yeah.
they don't have a lot of options. They don't create, like, their GDP is like not really created around like exportable goods or services.
Right.
So it's mainly their exportable stuff is like all entertainment, and all of the work, all the people that are employed, the work is very, very, very low level, low skilled jobs. The unemployment rate, yes, it's like kind of on par with some other like developed countries, but it's still very high for the type of work that is available. And not to mention, like, there's, if anyone's familiar with DK TV, they're like a South Korean news YouTube channel. They talk a lot about K-pop, but they also talk about like kind of cultural stuff too. And one of the things that they talk about one time was what kids are put through right after college. There's a lot of focus on
internships.
It's not so much internships. The way that they go about it is they take a test that's to get like an accounting job. So they have like an accountant test, or they have like like a computer work test. And these are really easy jobs to get in the US. Like, you can go anywhere in this country and you can get an entry level job as an admin assistant or as a tech support worker.
Tech support person, yeah.
But in South Korea, they have to take a test to get those entry level jobs. So there's these skyscraper buildings in South Korea that exist solely for the purpose of teaching all of these entry level people coming right out of college. They're trying to get these low level jobs, and you go into these places and it's depressing because no one wanted to end up there.
Right.
But hundreds to thousands of them are there, and they're all in that same position. So it's just like it's kind of a bleak system right now, what they have. And that's why honestly, that's why there's so many people going into, becoming idols and whatnot for the last, 20 years or so, is because there's not a lot of places for them to end
they're
up.
They're creating their own jobs and industry of entertainment. And like, that's very much part of Web 2.0 in general, that entertainment and people providing entertainment as a service will become more popular because it's unique experiences that people have never experienced before.
Yeah.
And experiences are where we are going as a civilization as automation and technology increase.
That's so interesting. I've been kind of reading a little bit about that too, with the whole
read about Web 2.0, because that's like it really helps you frame where we are going as humanity, and like why when Netflix came in, piracy actually dropped. And now that things are going more streaming service where you have to pay for all of the unique streaming services and are going away from a cable model, piracy is increasing. Because people are willing to pay for unlimited access to any content. Or unique experiences, like going to a BTS concert in New Jersey. People are willing to pay for things like that rather than limited access to things. To certain things, because I think that Disney Plus will catch the Netflix wave because they've managed to get enough content. But people will, piracy is going to increase again.
It's going to increase. There's too many services out there. And because now I got my Viki, and I have my Prime, and I have my Netflix.
And you're probably going to get Disney Plus.
Probably going to have to get Disney Plus. Oh my Lord. It's going to get insane. But
yeah, I mean, like, I don't see a point in having cable after Disney Plus comes in.
I don't have cable now. So I cut the cord 3 years ago. But yeah, like, so this whole tale that's being told with Danny is like incredibly representative of what's happening right now with like the economy of the world, I would say, because it is reflective. Yeah, it's reflective of what's happening in South Korea. It's hard for young people to get jobs. It's harder for older people to get back into the job market. But it's also reflective of, women experience it in the US as well. I've been at the point in my life where I think I'm thinking ahead and planning ahead. Okay, what's going to happen when you have kids? Are you going to take some time off of work? Are you going to, if you stop, everyone says, well, if you stop and you take some time off of work, it's difficult to get back in. And I've seen a lot of women struggle with that, especially with contract work, because that's another little detail of Danny's story, is that she becomes
a contractor
as opposed to being employed by the company directly. And that puts her in an unstable position. I'm a contractor, I'm in contract work, and it is scary sometimes, especially as a woman. You don't have the benefits. If I do get pregnant, I don't have the benefits to cover me as much as someone who's employed by the employer.
Yeah.
So I'm in a weird stasis of, well, maybe it is healthier for me to take time off of work totally, like not just through benefits, but if I actually quit the job and then try to go back into the workforce. But that is a risk. It's like a very, very high risk. So I know I can on some
There's a reason they call it the rat race.
Yeah. Oh God.
Right? Yeah. No, and I don't think that this has changed in our society. And Canada, because we have not guaranteed, but mostly guaranteed, time off for maternity coverage. Right. There is a level of protection that women or men, because they can split the parental leave for men if they were the ones who are staying home as the caregiver for that first year. And actually it's up to 18 months now if you want to take a little bit longer.
Wow.
But Dany stays home longer than that. She basically stays until her daughter is in school. And that was a decision of her and her husband at the time,
because she believed that he was going to rise up a little bit more.
Yeah, and she wanted to be supportive of him, even though like her career kind of was more successful than his. And as a woman in a position where my career is more successful than my husband's, like we've had that conversation.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and my husband happens to be in school still, getting his PhD, which means he'll probably make more than me when he is done. But still, like, the breadwinner, that's it puts a weird amount of pressure on you as a woman, because there's still that level of like, okay, well, if I want to change my career, if I get pregnant, if he does this, if I do that, like you are kind of taking care of the other person in a way, even if it's like this, even if you are on a completely equal footing relationship. If one of you is making more money than the other, there's a strange dynamic happening.
Yeah, and I would say that more traditionally, culturally, it's more acceptable for women to stay at home and like be protected and cared for and stuff like that. And there's a lot of cultural judgment we put on ourselves if the woman is making more money or if the man stays home. So that was probably part of the discussion, is like, who will be most negatively impacted by staying home? And a speaker at a seminar that I was a part of a while ago realized that women are, even though they might be negatively affected, they're typically less negatively affected because it's like okay for them to stay home.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I know my husband is like driven crazy week to week because he's home when he doesn't want to be, when I'm not, and taking care of our pets. and it's very weird, but and I would be in the same position if I was home all the time, and but as the more of the caregivers, as more of the or the symbolic moms, if not the literal moms of our household. And that's just a role that you can accept a little bit easier, yeah, as a woman. I think that with Danny, though, like, I think that there's something interesting that happens where she goes from being a corporate mom to a house mom, right?
Yeah.
She goes from being a really successful career woman, but she translates that to the home very,
Yeah.
very easily. She saves them money, even though, and her husband's like, well, we have money. It doesn't matter. We have money. And she's like, no, like this is important to me. We need to save money and we need to do this and we need to do that. And
Yeah, she's a good home economic person,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
She saves the money by keeping a scallion plant in the home so they don't have to buy scallions because they eat a lot of that in South Korea. And so she cares about the floors and she cares about the house because she bought the house. That was her money that she earned.
Yeah.
She got that house for them. And it's all very, like, I'm not that person, but I can understand it because you can see it very easily in those first few scenes when they introduce her situation and what
Yeah.
she's doing and where she's come from and everything.
She is literally just looking for an opportunity to succeed.
Yeah,
All
to
the
succeed
time.
all the time. Yeah,
She
that's
just
from the beginning.
wants to just, you know, have it click so that she can blow everybody away. And I identify with that
Mhm.
so much. Like, give me the right situation and I fly. Give me the
Yeah,
wrong situation and I continuously am crushed.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that, definitely. My career has been very important to me for a long time, and that was really refreshing to see her be just as driven by her career as she was by her relationships, like, as she was in her personal life and her home life and with her child. She wanted to succeed in all areas, and I think that's the biggest thing that women can relate to in general, is that we want to be successful in our careers and we want to be successful as spouses, as parents, um, as individuals. Like, we want to have everything. And sometimes you have to take time to focus on one versus the other. And that's
Yeah.
okay. That's okay. So
Yeah. And like, there is nothing wrong with Danny staying home. There's nothing wrong if her husband had been the one to stay home,
mhm,
and take time off. And actually, there's a caregiver storyline from Unwo's perspective that we
mhm.
get within
Oh, yeah.
the story. And I do want to
Good way to
talk
put it.
about it because caregiving should
Mhm.
never be a secret shame.
Yeah. Yeah, I have some thoughts about that too. Let's so we're getting into like kind of spoilery
Yeah.
stuff. I'm gonna do a couple more things on this that's not spoilery. Yeah, so if you haven't seen it yet, 16 episodes on Netflix. Like we've said before, it starts in a very different place and ends up, but it does have a complete arc for all of our characters, which is incredibly
Yeah.
refreshing, and it's that's really good about it. But it does, the messaging evolves, it changes very much, and you can see that they thought that it was about this thing and it ended up being about something completely different from the end.
Yeah.
And
And you could tell that because of the title credits.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So
And that's kind of interesting because, like, was it collectively story told, and did they record episodes, allow it to be viewed, and then like change the story like some of them do?
mhm.
You think? Do you think it got
I
like feedback?
I think the only thing I could really figure out is that the last episode that Lee Jong Suk filmed, the male lead, was in February. And
Wow.
yeah, so I think that
That was really quick. Like, they
yeah,
were filming as they were like releasing them then.
yes, so they started filming in October and then they finished filming in like around February-ish. And then he had to go into the military. So I think that it was rushed towards the end, and I think that they were absolutely releasing as they were still filming.
It
So
didn't feel that way from an editing perspective. So congrats.
yeah, I agree. I think that they succeeded
Yeah.
in this one, where I've seen ones that have failed, but this one succeeded. At the same time, like
There was some pieces. Yeah.
there was some pieces that I'm just like, no. They did not leave that out. And that was really, there's some offenses there that they couldn't really avoid, I would say. The big question about this is, what is it about? And is it about Danny and Onwo? Is it about their love story? Is it about a long lost love, or a long lost path, a long lost journey that Danny finally found herself back to? Is it about books? Is it about publishing? Is it about the stories that we tell ourselves? Is it about figuring out who you are? Is it about figuring out where your home is? Because that's a theme.
That's a theme. Yeah.
So with that being said, please.
It kind of poses a lot of questions, and it tries to answer them, and maybe leaves you with more things to think about after the fact than necessarily answering them, which sometimes is a good way to do storytelling too.
I agree. I thought the openness of it was really nice. There were some things that were wrapped up literally in the last episode.
Yeah.
Where I was like, right before I watched the last episode, I was like, they better wrap this up or I'm going to be mad. And they ended up doing all of it. They ended up, it's like my wish list was completely checked off. And that was surprising. I feel like maybe some of it should have been wrapped up before, but that's okay. They did it. It's whatever.
They told the story.
Please watch it if you have not already. It's only 16 episodes long.
Yeah, it was a really quick get through. I watched it as it was being released, so every time a new episode or a set of episodes would come out, I literally it's out. I gotta go watch them. Yeah, but I did that with Meteor Garden too. So
yes,
Netflix has me with this formula. I'm such a sucker for it.
It stresses me out. I'm not gonna lie.
I know.
Whenever a new episode is released on Netflix, I go, oh.
Do I have time? Do I have time to watch this? Because my life doesn't function like that anymore because of streaming shows. Either I record them and then I watch them all together, or I very rarely watch things as they come up, like the sections like Game of Thrones.
Right.
And I wonder if we're gonna get that with some of the newer streaming shows that are coming out, because they seem to they're trying to get us back to the cable mentality rather than releasing them all at the same time, whereas Netflix really functions on, I'm gonna binge this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm setting aside time to watch TV. That's literally what our culture is going to.
Yeah, it really is. And I have my dedicated time every day, which happens to be in the morning. I know a lot of people watch TV at night, but I watch TV in the morning now. And it's because I can. I don't have to wait for something to come out. I have my set of shows that I watch, and I put one on in the morning and I go. And I don't even look at the clock anymore because I know how much time my episodes are, and I know when I need to go.
That's funny.
It's bizarre, but yeah, it's really changing how we how television, how we consume, how television acts in our lives and whatnot. So I'm going to get into spoilers now. So
spoilers,
please check it out if you haven't already.
You could literally go binge it this weekend, come back and listen to the rest of this episode.
Absolutely. We have a lot more to say. So I really enjoyed the framing story of around this drama, except for the fact that I knew exactly what was going to happen in the first episode.
What framing story? What are you talking about?
So in this case, what I'm referring to as the framing story is the publishing story about the author Kang.
Oh, the famous
author disappearing, and the young artist. Man that's looking for him.
Yeah, that was pretty obvious. I felt like it was done well.
It was done well, but I felt like the April 23rd thing, they kept pushing it.
Smack us over the head a little more.
Smack us in that. Just please, can we not have it be the birthday? Because I knew it was the birthday. The moment that we found out it was the code to get
it would have been cool if it was the day that he showed up at his house.
I thought that's what it was when they started wrapping up the story.
I just feel like that would have been cooler cooler date to use rather than
Yeah.
the birthday.
Yeah.
Although the birth date is like, I mean, the birth date, they were able to red herriness with the idea of April 23rd being this other thing to do with writers. Like, it
Mhm.
means that this is your last book or whatever. And,
Mhm.
you know, I kind of like that. I have to like look into whether that's actually true.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that actually.
Yeah.
So I do need to figure out if that's true. I think, yeah, and the fact that he was born on that date, it kind of seemed like, okay, of course, that's what it was.
Of course that would, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't like him. Like like,
interesting.
you know, what was his name? He was the artist who did all of the book art
Oh,
for
hold on, I have it. June. Weeha June is the
We
name
Had
of the
June.
act. Sorry, is the name of the actor. His name was like Jisoo, G C Seo Jun. Seo Jun.
Seo Jun? Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
Seo Jun.
Sujun.
Seo
Sujun.
Jun.
Sujun. And okay, so
He was a new
Kan
he's a new actor.
Kan Dan-yi, I identified her with her a lot. She was a sweet woman who just tried to do her best.
Yeah.
That's literally describing her. She just tries to do her best, and she's smart and she's skilled,
Mhm.
and it's like nothing goes her way.
Mhm.
Eunwoo is embittered and grumpy but talented, and it, they come together in the very typical drama fashion by which she discovers her own power and that she is right to be able to have her skills and the things that she is okay to be herself, even though she was kind of hiding under layers of the
Ugh.
things that she was hiding amongst herself, right?
Yeah.
It
Oh,
is a
yeah.
very heroine's journey for Kandani.
Yeah.
So e- awesome. And, you know, like aspects about her being 37, like I literally just turned 37. So I like was like, this is me. Like, you know, and like, you know, I remember getting older and then like having to make decisions about, you know, do I pull back on my career to focus on my life, or do I like
Mhm.
try to get something? But in the end, like satisfying work makes me happy throughout my whole life,
Mhm.
you know. And Woe being younger, but like more successful in some ways than her because of the time off that she had, and that they had this very unique relationship that she was older and kind of felt protective of him, even though he was, you know, and they had to almost switch roles to become partners,
Yeah.
was very fascinating. And he had his own secrets, which he never shared with anybody really. And
Mhm.
um
I find
yeah.
this there's a theme here that you're kind of like touching on a little bit, and I want to point it out is that Dani has no insecurities. She has things that she doesn't talk about. She has things that she lies about, like downright
Straight up
lies.
lies, yeah.
But she's not insecure about it. And the funny thing is that we have on Woe, it doesn't have insecurities either because he has always had to live up to Danya's expectations in a way. And then
Yeah.
we have the other two, the Sejun and Song Hairin, who are kind of as foils to them, who each of them have incredible insecurities.
Oh, yeah, like, they're not secure at all with who they are and who they're meant to be, and of course, they end up together. Like, of
but
course,
but
and
yeah,
yeah, I
as
didn't
not like as straightforward as some of the other couples. I mean,
yeah, everybody couples up
yeah,
by the end.
everyone.
I
You
mean,
get a
is
pairing, you get a pairing, you get a pairing. It's
yeah,
great.
it's very musical, you know
Yes.
how in musicals, like, everybody ends up together?
Hey, it started with a musical number. They better
I
all end
know,
up
well, like no, you're right, I didn't even notice, like, I literally blanked out on this, like, first episode, like,
It's so funny.
It's a so the fact that she was, like, homeless and, like, couldn't find a job, and, like, she had this horrible situation with her husband and her ex-husband, and, like, her daughter was away from her, it was, like, literally all of my fears as a woman,
Mhm.
like, in an episode. I cried. Like, I do
Yeah.
not
Oh, yeah.
cry at these things, and it upset me so much. So,
Mhm.
like, the first episode, I almost was like, "No, delete from Netflix. Like, delete
Oh.
it from my history. Like, I don't even wanna watch this." But I was like, "I will give it another try." It was so emotionally wrecking. So like if you're there and you're like, I'm still listening to this for some reason just to find out what you say, like I found the first episode to be incredibly difficult to get through. Once you get to the second episode and there's like glimmers of hope, like even though she lies, she's trying to find her way. I was able to get through
it. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and again, like after like the second episode, I was like, no, I'm hooked because
yeah, the second episode started to introduce kind of more of what was going on behind the scenes and what was happening, like with the ex and the daughter and all of that. So it was a lot more layered on. It was a lot more interesting. I also think that when they introduced that secondary cast, when they introduced the all of the cast at the publishing company, it really took off because every single person, every single character at that publishing company is there for a reason.
Yes.
Every single one.
Tell you something.
Oh my God. I was so overwhelmed by the end of the drama throughout the whole thing, to be honest, because I had such a fun time with these other characters. I would say there's two parts. There's two parts that I completely lost it. I was emotional. I was an emotional wreck. And one of them was the character Ko Yu-sun.
Like the young intern?
No, actually. The older woman, the older.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
she, basically shows off. They go out partying, dancing, whatever. And Kang Denye wears like tennis shoes and like a cute.
Yeah, and they can't get into the club, and she shows up, and she's this cougar.
Yes, and she's like this amazing, like hot, sexy
bar star. Yeah.
Yep. And she dances, and I was like, I'm watching it. I'm literally like, I want to be her when I grow up. Like, I love it.
And then they go to her house.
And then they go to her house, and it's this luxurious apartment, completely trash. And the moment that I was like, I oh my God, I embraced it so much was when she comes out with the wedding photo, and she's in this tight little, slinky little outfit that she wore out to a club, surrounded by garbage, and she's holding this wedding photo, and she's totally drunk. And then she just kind of like drops it and slinks down on the couch, and they're like, "Wait, you were married?" And she was like, "No, I wasn't married.
I took the photo.
I took the photos." Yeah, and it was just like,
your life is a hot mess.
It's a hot mess.
And like you have this beautiful, like, I have my shit together covering that is just not real.
Like, and thank God she went back to being a bitch at work. I loved that. I thought she was an amazing character. She got a complete arc.
Her arc was cool.
It was so cool. It was so cool.
She opens up and she was like, nope, that was wrong. Shouldn't have done that. Bitch. She ends up actually being one of the only antagonists. And she has a redemption arc in it, which is cool.
And every single one of these other female characters in the show doesn't have an ending per se in their arcs, but they have a beginning at the end. Yeah. They have the beginning of their arc. And
they have a new story. Yeah.
They have a new story that begins, and you can finish it in your head. It's very easy to, but the beginning of her story was at that final episode when Kim Jae-min, the founder, the CEO of the publishing company, he's just sitting there in his office, has no idea. Like, obviously he's in love with her. We know that. And she comes up to him and is like, all right, let's skip work. Let's go to the beach. Yeah. And he stands up. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't say a word. And
he worries about her like the whole time. Little sweet things like the button.
It's when she recognizes it that is the beginning of her new story.
It's good. It was all like prologue, like all of their relationship interactions.
Oh, that's a good way to put
it. Prologue to a future story.
Yeah.
And I think that really ties into the actual name of the show, because although we get the romance between Kandani and Eunwo, I think that because we get the start of romances at the end of the whole story, romance is really a bonus book for the whole thing.
I just got chills. That's exactly what it is.
That's what it is. It was like, what is the prologue to all of these other stories?
Yeah. I'll bring it back here too. The whole point of the whole show towards the end of it and how the writers wrote it was that every person is a book. And every person, right? Every person's a microcosm. Yep. Every person's a book. Every person is their own universe.
Everyone has their own story to tell.
Everyone has their own story to tell. For BTS fans, yes, that I'm talking about the song Microcosmos as well. And yeah, it's all, we're all little lights in this universe. And every single one of these other characters, these bonus characters, like they had their little lives. And I can imagine that with the amount of information that they gave us about them. The other one that hit me hard was the Kim Sung Young and Jo Han Chul, and that's the ones that got divorced.
Right. Yeah, they got divorced midway through the show, but still continued to tell, or still continued to co-parent.
Yeah. Successfully. And there's some hints there. There's some hints there that their story is not over and they're not completely done. Mainly because he didn't want to be completely done. He was not giving up on them at all. He was not giving up on her. He was not giving up on them. But he recognized that he needs to change and he needs to do things differently. Mm-hmm. And she is not giving up on him, but she's like, I need to be my own person for a little while.
Yeah.
While we continue on in our lives. I need to be my own person in my life. So that was amazing. And Kim Sun Young, she's in a bunch of other dramas too. She always plays very like insane characters.
So that was like the associate editor, right?
Yeah.
Oh God.
She was a hot mess as well.
I mean, like there were certain aspects of the secondary characters that I just did not jive with. Like a lot of people commented on how like they just didn't feel connections to those people. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's my favorite part about it. There's another drama called Shopping King Louie. I did not feel a connection to any of those characters. And again, this is one of those things where I would be happy to talk to someone who did, because I want to know like why. And you know, maybe it is just a difference in preference, but I felt a very strong connection to these characters. They had a lot of angst. They had a lot of stuff they went through. Whenever Kim Sun Young and Jo Han Chul, like whenever they meet on the boardwalk and he's fishing, and she had just got done, you know, clubbing the night before and crying.
Yeah.
Crying like all night long with Ko Yu-sun. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God. I think I'm using their real names sometimes versus their
that's okay.
character names. But regardless,
the artist and the associate.
People know who I'm talking about. They have like this really like somber moment just sitting there eating ramen out of styrofoam cups, and it's cold and they're just talking but not talking. They're not talking about what's actually going on. They're just there together. And I think those moments made me connect with the characters in a way that doesn't always happen. Kind of one of the big things that I find fascinating that I've been kind of tiptoeing around with this one for a little bit is that Danny is actually a very unlikable character. If you take away the other characters' view of her, if you take away Anwo's love for her, if you look at her with a very naked lens, she's someone that should be the bad guy in a lot of dramas. She should be an unlikable character.
Because she lies and she is underhanded, and she still cares about people, though. I think that's the difference, is that she's compassionate to others.
She is compassionate, but she's only compassionate to a point where she's not trying to get anything from anybody. So she's not needy. She doesn't need anything from anyone. She cares about people because she knows that she would want to be cared about, but she doesn't need anything from anyone. I think that's what makes her like a good person at the end of the day. She needs to control her own story, and she needs to, that's what she needs. She needs to tell her own story the way she wants to tell it. And she needs to manipulate or sometimes lie about her story in order to get to where she wants to get to. Which is a very like, we can forgive her for lying about her experience, obviously. But she does it more than that. She does it with Anwo. She lies, she withholds information, but we can say she lies there. And we can say, she kind of puts the idea of her daughter, she puts that aside as well. The fact that she has a daughter, the fact that she is a parent, she has to put that aside in order to focus on what she needs and what she wants, which is something that a lot of women can relate to, but is considered like not such a good trait.
Typically.
But it's interesting.
But she does right by every person in her life.
I think that it would have been better if they would have brought the daughter back.
Yeah, I always was like, well, they mention, so they talk about it. So they in the writing, they bring her back mentally, right? Because she says, my daughter's going to graduate in X amount of time. Like, where is she going to be? And Unwo's like, well, we'll figure it out together.
Yeah.
So that she knew her daughter was there emotionally and spiritually in the story, especially with how much she cared about her. I don't know that I could do what Danyi did as a mom, like send my child away. But I have friends that have sent their kids away to boarding schools who like were gone for like 10 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and there's time. There's time to get back. I think there's always time to get back. I'm away from my mother, and I'm trying to get time back that I've missed with her over the past 5 or 6 years. So, there's always time to get back. But I do find it interesting that typically she would be this very unlikable character, or even the villain. She could be the villain in other stories, but she's our main here, and she was literally painted as a bully in high school, or not in high school, even like as an elementary school student or as a middle school student. She was painted as a bully. So this bully beat people up, and
I mean, I was painted as a bully in elementary school.
Oh yeah, that's right, you told me that. They didn't try to make excuses for her. They didn't make excuses for her when she lied. They didn't make excuses for her when they said she was a bully. They just told us the story.
Yeah, and then they showed us consequences for those things. Absolutely. They just didn't, I think that was really well done.
Yeah.
Like, really well done.
I think so too. And I just wanted to highlight it, because when I see characters that are painted as the bad person or the villain or whatever, and then they have like similar traits, but maybe their story isn't being told from their perspective, I want to think about Danny.
Yeah, I think it will be good to reevaluate, because she is an atypical heroine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of nice and refreshing. She was like a breath of fresh air in Korean dramas that we've seen.
Absolutely.
She and Asian dramas in general. Like, she wasn't helpless. Mm-hmm. She didn't want help, which is a familiar trait, but like,
she wasn't young,
which was nice. And
she wasn't naive.
And she had her own personality. She was very aware of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And she honestly just wanted to be there for others, but she never had the opportunity to like help out on Wall. Like, that was one of her big complaints with him, is like, you didn't share what you were going through. I want to help you.
Yeah.
I want to be there for you.
And she wasn't mad for whenever she found out his big secret.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you wanted to talk about the fact that Anwo was like acting as like a caregiver to our Our disappeared author.
Yeah, our disappeared author found out he had a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, and so wanted to, as part of his wish, leave the public eye,
Because he wanted
basically.
to be remembered as an author and not as a person dying and losing his mind.
Yeah, and I really respect that, right? He kind of just wanted to disappear from society and leave this, like, I don't know, unknown factor. And
Yeah.
Unwo is maybe not his favorite student, but, like, you know how sometimes you have this tenuous relationship with your mentors? Like, like, I think he saw the most promise in him, but also was frustrated with where Unwo was from a personal perspective.
Yeah.
We got that kind of through the backstory flashbacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Unwo basically took it on to fill in the place of his son, because he never knew if this author had any family. He didn't think he had any family. So Unwo, in his mind, fulfilled the role of son, the obligation of son, caring for this person. And anyone who's cared for a person with Alzheimer's, my husband has two grandparents. Both of his grandmothers were diagnosed with Alzheimer's slash dementia. One was dementia, but similarly, that the care associated with them is extreme. They sometimes, as they're slipping, they know who they are in the morning and they don't know who they are at night. And it's incredibly hard. It's incredibly emotional if you care for that person. And sometimes they remember emotions. They don't necessarily remember the specifics. So they could get mad at you because you're trying to get them to take medicine. And then they'll be mad at you for years because they just remember that they're mad at you.
Yeah.
They just remember that they're mad at you. They don't remember why, because the emotions stay longer because they're in a different part of the brain than is affected by Alzheimer's. It's so incredibly difficult. And the fact that he took this on and almost wore it like a secret, like he had it as a secret, this secret shame in some ways, because he could never share, because it was against the person's wishes to know that he was sick. And Unwo did it. Like, how self-sacrificial. Like, he did it on his own. And yeah, the company got benefit from having the author's books be published, and then all of the proceeds went to charity. But the publicity of having this author sign with them was beneficial to the company, and it helped them succeed, which, like, this was so well done. I still think back on it and I'm like, oh, this was a really cool way of doing it. And in the end, it resolves that both the lost son and the son that was adopted slash always there to protect and save and care for the author father, both were important.
Yeah.
And they both considered each other the sons of this author, which I thought was just good. So good. So good.
Yeah, the adopted son and then the long lost son were both.
Yeah.
They became kind of brothers towards the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like towards the end they should have revealed that a little bit sooner, so that we could have gotten a little bit more relationship from.
It was only 16 episodes. It's not
only 16 episodes.
It's not a Chinese drama where they can literally explore every facet of a person's mind and
different
angst of everything.
Oh my god, yeah, no, it's not that. And I could have watched more of this. I think that the story was there, the characters were there, we could have gotten more out of it. So
the romance is a bonus book for your imagination.
Yeah, definitely. I love how the romance of the leads is almost like a distraction from what's going on in the rest of the story, and it's almost a distraction in a way that's saying.
Can we talk about how they totally had sex?
Yes, but it was don't like that part because I wish they would have shown more.
It was fine. It was a fade to black. It was hilarious. He's like, wait, do I get my pajamas? I don't need my pajamas. I love that line so much. I loved it so much. It was so good.
I was disappointed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I mean,
I'm so sorry.
they can only do so much. Seriously, North America, get into this model and show us more.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Everyone's a book. Everyone's their own universe. Humans have intrinsic value.
Humans have intrinsic value, yeah. And everybody's story is still being written. And so you have the opportunity to make it better for yourself.
That's what this drama literally felt like. It felt like a story that was being written while you watch it, and it was really special because of that.
It was really special.
Yeah.
We loved it.
We fell for it.
We fell for it, and you will too.
Yeah, totally. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been Fall For It Nation Drama Pod. I want to say a quick thing about communications wise. Obviously, we're on Twitter. You can follow us at fallforit_drama. That's our Twitter handle. I'm responsible mainly for the tweets. Ty is responsible mainly for the tweets. But, I occasionally rope Marie Claire in on her personal account. But you can also, if you're not on Twitter, please email us. We have an email now. It's fallforit_drama@gmail.com. So it's the same as the Twitter handle. Please email us and just give us any kind of feedback. Tell us what kind of dramas you're watching right now. Give us recommendations. Please don't give me a whole list because we get that all the time. But
we're working through a bunch on our own. It's yeah. Also, if you listen to this on YouTube, feel free to comment in the comment section. That's a really great way for us to get some feedback too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tell us specifically about this drama. If you watched it, tell us what you thought about Danny. Tell us what you thought about the other characters, and how, if you thought this drama was successful and what they were trying to do. Also, if you heard something in this pod that you completely disagreed with, please tell me, because sometimes Marie Claire and I have such similar ideas and similar thoughts that we're missing a chunk of someone else's experience that I think we would benefit from, and I think the pod would benefit from. So tell me your perspective and tell me your experience. I want to eat it all up. I'm just I'm very intrigued because it's all about telling your personal story. It's about sharing your personal story. And that's what this pod is all about. So please email us, communicate with us on Twitter. And I'm looking forward to next month. I have no idea what we're doing next month, but hopefully I can finish Eternal Love and we can talk about it. Or Eternal Love. It's not true. Hopefully I can finish Ashes of Love. Ashes of Love. Because that's not confusing at all. And
Eternal Love is very similar.
Yeah, no, it is. It's so similar. Anyways, but yeah, maybe we can talk about that next month. But yeah, I'll keep you guys posted on Twitter. And thanks again for listening to Fall For It. Marie Claire, where can they find you?
So my personal Twitter is Marie C. Gould. And I try to keep that out of the Star Wars realm. Sometimes I will talk about other projects that I'm working on, like Fall For It and Tavern Tales, which is the RPG that I'm working on. But if you're interested in hearing more from Ty and I related to Star Wars and the Star Wars storytelling, especially myth and symbolism, which is our big segment together on What the Force, you can follow us on Twitter at What the Force Show or find us at whattheforce.ca.
And we like to converse a lot about a lot of things. So
story, give me story or give me death. I don't know. I'm tired.
And on that note,
no, everybody is a story. Romance is a bonus book.
Aww. Cut.
Cheers.
Cheers.